only outfit in the country that is immune. Imagine had the tobacco industry been immune to prostitute being sued. Come on. President, come on over. President. President, just a few questions.
Polls, the top issues for the midterm elections. For Democrats, what are they? What did you find?
Prices, the economy, the economy, the economy. I mean, it trumps every other issue, and it trumps it not just for Democrats, for Republicans, for voters of color, really right across the board. And it's not even close. By double digits, it's the most important issue.
You break it down between men and women. How well is the economy working for you? This is interesting.
Women, particularly, the economy is not working well for them. 58% of women say that the economy is personally not working well for them, that they're worried about the impact of prices on their ability to support their families, to pay for basic necessities.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats as the President and Vice President
Smith says the post office recently left this notice at her Santa Monica apartment complex. It reads in part, delivery service is hereby suspended to all addresses located on the 1300 block of 14th Street.
And my immediate reaction was just disappointment, frustration.
The note goes on to say multiple carriers have been subjected to assaults and threats of assault from an individual who has not been located or apprehended.
He served the Department of Justice for 2 decades. He worked side by side to support the work of federal, state, and local law enforcement, including AFT agents.
Is the White House preparing for a recession? Well, we're going to constantly monitor our economic data. But what our economic team feels and what the U.S. government economic team feels is that the economy has a very strong basis. Our recovery has been incredibly strong.
Let me say it slowly for my Democratic friends in Washington, D.C. Black voters are more conservative than you are. White woke leaders in Washington, D.C. Hispanic voters are more conservative than you are. White woke leaders in Washington, D.C. Asian American voters are more conservative than you are. White woke voters in Washington, D.C. And they're more conservative on crime. They're more conservative on education. They're more conservative on, quote, these woke issues. Get off of Twitter. I'm telling you, and Rev, if you look at Biden runs against 15 progressives. Biden's the only moderate. Biden wins. We've said it time and again. Eric Adams runs as a conservative. He wins Brooklyn. He wins the Bronx. He wins Staten Island. Surprise. He wins Queens as a conservative, as a centrist Democrat. Can you please? I know you've done it a lot.
No.
Can you explain to white woke leaders, can you explain to them that they're not only losing white dudes in the upper Midwest, they're losing people of color?
They're losing people of color because they really don't get the people of color's life. If you are living in a city, in a neighborhood that is inundated with crime, and you act like that is not an issue, you've already lost me. That is an issue. Yes, we must deal with policing. I've been out front of that. But you cannot ignore when 12-year-old kids who somebody's niece and neighbor is killed, and you act like that's a non-issue because you're too elitist to live on the ground.
And I've done that the entire time, running on core progressive values that were once considered too left to run in the Democratic mainstream back in 2016. If any of you remember my first race, we didn't have, barely gas money in that first race.
It was quite the symbol to see Prime Minister Boris Johnson walking the streets of Kyiv with President Zelensky. It raises the question, are we going to see President Biden in Kyiv?
President Biden doesn't currently have any plans to travel to Kyiv. But what I will tell you is he sits in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room on a daily basis, organizing and coordinating the world, and organizing and coordinating the world to take actions like the one last week to kick Russia out of the Human Rights Council.
Would you rule it out? If there was a reason to go, he would get there?
President Biden has been to Kyiv before. He looks forward to going to Kyiv again, but we're not currently planning a trip.
But if all those employed people can't buy groceries, we have a serious problem.
But that's kitchen table, too.
It's kitchen table, but Mika, it's more than just messaging. It's more than whether or not Democrats have a slogan that says Democrats deliver. It's what are we actually going to do to intervene to try to lower prices, lower inflation, until people see that happen and feel it in their pocketbooks.
Sometimes
I don't think the messages matter.
Sometimes it's a problem.
It's a problem.
Exactly.
And you got to show you're dealing with the problem, because let's remember that all of this happened while the Democrats were in power. You told us to put you in power. We put you in power, and now I can't afford the life I'm living. You've got to tell me how you're going to deal with that, because I put you in power there to understand me, not to preach to me.
Joe, as part of the negotiations with the Iranians and working on, as the Biden administration works on reviving that deal. But President Biden has called Vladimir Putin a war criminal, and Russia would stand to gain billions if they were to hold this uranium. Can this continue? Can Russia continue to be at the table for these Iran negotiations?
Well, Dana, here's how we look at it, and you know this from your many past experiences. Diplomacy, foreign affairs, it's complicated, and this is an example of that.
Do you think that if you hold student loan debt right now, that you will ever have to make a payment during the Biden administration?
I suspect that sometime you will, but again, we are going to continue to assess every month, every few months, on where things stand, both looking, of course, at COVID, but also economic data and where we need to continue to help give the American people some breathing room.